Oh, I love that. It's a fantastic. Um, so so basically, like people, as I said, people have this idea of bombastic, gregarious, like always on, all of that kind of stuff. But I think, and I think you'll agree with this, that perhaps even the pandemic and the lockdowns and virtual selling and all of that, it may actually have played into the hands of the empaths and introverts.
Yeah, because we've all sort of forgotten how to people a little bit. Right? Like, I just signed up for the first conference that I will be attending in 2 years. And I love people. I have friends going. I'm excited about the conference. And I'm still just like, can I share a bed with a complete stranger so we can room share at this hotel? Can I? Am I going to be able to make small talk with people? Like, these are the things that in the past I'd be like, we're buds, we can share a bed, who cares? Or, like, yeah, I can talk about stuff while we find bagels. Normal stuff. No, it's not normal anymore. But one thing that we've had to do is adapt to this call and response type of conversation as opposed to this monologuing, right? That's one of the things that I love about podcasts is it's call and response
Yeah.
where it's not that people aren't running webinars or anything like that anymore or long form sales presentations. Of course they are. But when you're in this platform and the other person is literally sitting a screen away, it does feel disingenuous and forced to be like, okay, I will now talk for 45 minutes while you just sit there and blink at me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And almost it's almost also if you think about some of the like outgoing, more gregarious, like salespeople type, I mean, it's a lot different when you start to try and do that stuff virtually online. It's kind of bit like when you can sit down with somebody in a room and be, oh yeah, or take, oh, what about you, and all this kind of
Right.
stuff. In a virtual environment, that kind of jars a little bit. I mean, yeah, you can do it, but you need to kind of dial it back a little bit.
Absolutely. I mean, I know myself, I'm going to have to tone it back down when I go to in person because for me, it's the opposite. Like, I always have this loud Muppet energy. I'm an introvert, but I'm loud because as a really scared and awkward kid, I didn't know what to do. So I just watched my motivational speaker mother get loud and I was like, oh, that works. Woo! Right? So I'm here and I'm a lot, but I got to plug myself in at the end of the day, right? This does not
Mhm.
come easily to me, but I know when I get when I get in person again, I'm not going to be able to be like, "Hi John, hi John, hi," because you'd be like, "Oh my God, stop, cool it." But also at the same point, I do know some people that I knew from the real world who intentionally have like a sales swagger that they try to
Mhm.
do to impress people or to set the tone right. And so, like, the way they walk into the room or the way they set their coffee down, right? And I can think of this one guy in particular who sells insurance, and I have nothing against insurance. I have many forms of insurance. But what he likes to do is come off intentionally like a butthead and then slowly reveal to you his like warm Care Bear center. I don't understand why this is his method. It works for him. But I can only imagine him sitting down with his I could care less about you attitude on a freaking Zoom call and the person there being like, does this guy even notice that I'm here? Right? So
Yeah,
we have had to adapt. And again, it's about listening. If I'm sitting there acting like this, like I couldn't even care that I'm talking to either of you right now on this whatever. Yeah, thanks for getting on my calendar today, John. Like that's I'm not listening. Even if I am listening, I'm not showing you I'm
yeah.
listening. And on the flip side, if I'm coming in really hot, hi, thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. Oh my god. You'd be like, no, this is not working. So we've had to take a breath and we've had to remember that there's someone else involved in this conversation. It's not a diatribe, it's a dialogue.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a great point. But I also think has been kind of good about this and the move to virtual, and that is, I think it's allowed introverts and to get a word in, because, you know, let's face it, I mean, when everybody's in a room, say you're at a sales meeting or something in a room all together, the loud guys that, you know, are going to dominate, right? You know, the ones with the swagger and all of that, you know, regardless of whether male, female, whatever, those they're going to dominate. And the extroverts or the introverts are going to pull back and kind of sit there and, you know, wait till they're asked or whatever, or throw in a small comment. But if you do this stuff virtually, it kind of doesn't work anymore for those extroverts to kind of dominate in a virtual environment. I think it's actually because people need to hear some, you know, people need to be more concise, you know, a little bit more brevity, etc. And I think that gives a great opportunity for extroverts to be heard.
Absolutely, because you're totally right. When someone is showboating, it totally feels weird. It feels weird. But then also, I feel like on the flip side, self-advocacy and speaking up on a digital platform or in a digital age is also easier for introverts, because you don't have to walk up to the front of the room and stand there full-bodied with your slides and your this or that, right? There's more forgiveness involved in online. If your screen sharing's not working, if you're still on mute, if your dog runs into the room, that happens on CNN now. Who cares, right? So I think there's less risk involved in speaking up, but everybody's turn has also gotten shorter, so you can stand your beautiful introvert self up online, say your extremely observant 2 sentences, because we all know that when introverts finally do talk, it's always the smartest thing said that day, right? They can say their amazing soundbite, sit right back down, and go back to doing what they do best, which is listening and observing.
It's the George Costanza model, right?
Yes, the George.
You know, do you remember George Costanza's one? Just say something profound and then leave.
Yes. And also tell people that you designed the Guggenheim, because right?
Exactly. So, so Andy, one of the attendees right now is asking, like, do you really believe that introverts can be successful salespeople? So, just for a moment, can you talk about maybe a couple of examples, not names, everything, but people you've come across over the years, and obviously yourself, people who've been very successful as even though they're introverts.
So let's not forget that some of the people we're selling to are also introverts. And point. We have a tendency to sell in the way that feels good to us, like a love language, right? So if we're a super emotional buyer, we tend to be a super emotional seller. If we're a really loud and enthusiastic buyer, we tend to be a loud, enthusiastic seller. But that can alienate the introverts in our audience. Let's not forget, one of the main things that we need people to feel is seen. And when an introverted client gets dominated by a loud, blowhard salesperson, that introvert does not feel seen. So right off the bat, yes, introverts can be successful selling to introverts and to extroverts because of that critical piece of listening. Now, I'm not going to use me as an example, even though I am one, because as we've already disclosed, I am a very, very loud introvert. So I'm not a unicorn. I'm like a snuffleupagus. Like I'm a little bit of a different breed, right? But what I've seen with my clients is that one thing that they can do magnificently and way better than the extroverts is they can build safety, trust, and rapport in the moment gorgeously by giving the other person that reverent space that introverts do naturally. So if you're an introvert and you're trying to sell, what I wanted you to focus on in order to be so successful, this is the switch that we flipped. Give them, the buyer, the client, the prospect, the power to drive the conversation. You don't have to step outside of your navigator observer role. You don't have to take the reins at the very beginning and force that person all the way through. Instead, you could say, listen, you could even call it out. I'm on the shyer side, I'm on the introverted side, but I know that you have questions. So what I want to do is, instead of dumping a spiel at you, I want to know, understand intimately what your needs are so I can assess fit. So I think you are actually going to do most of the talking on this call. Is that okay with you?
Hmm. Yeah,
Now,
no, I think that's a
what?
fantastic approach.
Right? And then if you get two introverts on the call, they're going to go, "Oh, I don't know. Well, okay, well, hold on. I guess I'll ask a question. Well, and then no, I want to hear from you. And then you go, "Okay, well, this person is shy too, and we can drop all the weird sales pretense and just talk to each other." But even an introverted seller with a very extroverted buyer, they're giving them the oxygen to take up the room. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Amazing.
No, I totally agree with you, and I think that's a good point. Just to underline that point you made about buyers, because I think that's a mistake sometimes people make, and especially if you're selling to a group of people, and in that group of people, yes, you may have the extrovert, you may have the person who loves to just get the 50,000 foot view, you may have the analytical person, you may have the introvert, as you said, who's not going to say anything unless you actually draw them out. So you can't communicate in just one way to a group of people, and you can't, even individuals, you have to understand who they are first and how they're going to receive your message.
Mm-hmm. But yes, I mean, most of my clients are one on one service providers. I have lots of
Hmm.
coaches, lots of energy healers, practitioners of different kinds. And a lot of them, because they're that ooey gooey giver type, are naturally more other centered and, yes, more introverted. If I tried to make a yoga teacher, Reiki practitioner, star child sell like Oprah, they would hate me. They wouldn't hire me. They wouldn't do what I told them to do. Instead, like a yoga class, you come into a yoga class, the tone has been set. The room is calm and peaceful and respectful. Why can't an introvert use their gifts of honoring their own boundaries and safety? Why can't you focus then on creating what many people would perceive to be the exact opposite of a sales space? That high
Mm.
paced, loud, frantic. What if they come in? What if the client comes into the room and there you are, just content in yourself and ready to share?
Yeah.
Why can't that be the approach? It can, it should, and it can be very profitable.
No, I couldn't agree more. And I think to do that, though, you have to really honor your authentic self, right? You have to come across in an authentic fashion. And you have to be, as you said, you have to be open about who you are. Because let's face it, inauthenticity is something that a lot of people would associate with sales. Not
Yes.
necessarily true, but that's just the perception of it. And I think the changing nature of things today has given that opportunity to be much more, as I said, a much more authentic, and to reveal yourself. And I think that's what people want. I think people are craving authenticity.
Well, what's the alternative? I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. Like we look at that now and we're like, yes, people are craving authenticity, and they are. But imagine going backwards. Imagine going backwards into the age of gloss.
Hmm.
Ew.
Yeah.
Right? We're even
No.
getting Tony Robbins in t-shirts now. Tony Robbins isn't wearing suits to his stuff anymore. We want authenticity, right? And so we want real wants to do business with real.
Hmm. Just tell me a little bit about the role of empathy, because again, I mean, this is a huge part of it, because and you can't fake empathy, and I know some people sort of try to do it, but I mean, you again, it comes with the authenticity. But talk to me about the role of empathy.
Fake empathy to that point is very, very similar to fake intimacy, where, you get the messages from someone you haven't spoken to since high school, and they're like, John, my man, how are you? Oh my God, where are you? You're in California now? What? Hey, listen, I want to talk to you about this business investment. And you're like, whoa, whoa, right? That fake empathy comes off a lot like that. But there's this thing that I discovered called the empathy gap, or I call it the empathy gap. And what it was when I was in marketing and branding and I couldn't figure out why I was so sales avoidant and I hated selling so much, I decided I had to just learn it, right? And so I went out and I read 138 sales books in a year. And some of them were incredible, and some of them were god awful. But the big ones and the small ones alone, male authors, female authors, all ages, all decades, this freaking word empathy kept popping up in all of these books. In order to be a millionaire, in order to be a billionaire, in order to be the golden standard of sales, you have to practice empathy. But I started laughing hysterically every time I saw that, because my people and me were using our empathy as a reason not to sell, because we have the bond, we have that intimacy, we have that awareness, especially of pain points. A lot of us have been in those pain points before, or when the client talks to them, we physically feel them, right? Empathy is all about being a human emotional sponge. But what's hysterical is that, yeah, all these books are like, you know what? If you want to be a good salesperson, learn empathy. And all these empaths are going, I'm a high empath, I can't sell. What? What? And so if you're not an empathic person, what I want you to focus on, because you're right, you can't teach empathy, but what you can do is make sure that you are showing up with a combination of vulnerability and respect. That is the closest fake, off-brand empathy that you can get, is that combination of show up with respect for the person on the other side of the transaction, right? And show up with vulnerability or authenticity in yourself. If you're talking about a pain point and you've experienced it, how are you going to be genuine about that? If you've had the major transformation that you're selling, or you can speak passionately to the success of your clients, that's about as close to empathy as you're going to get. But on the flip side, if you're naturally empathic, what you need to realize is that part of you that feels bonded to that client, you do not have to violate that bond in order to sell. And the way that we violate that bond is by becoming a completely different person at the last sales moment, right? Where we're talking this whole time just like this, you and I hanging out, having a great time. And then at the end, I'm like, all right, John, so the investment today is this and that. Or I just shut all emotion off altogether, right? If I shut all emotion off altogether, the person on the other end of that ooey gooey empathy goes, hey, where'd you go? Hello?
Yeah.
Hello? We don't have to violate it. Stay in that energy, stay in that space, close from that compassionate place.
Yeah, you see, I love that, Annie, about closing that compassionate state, because it is, as you said. I mean, if you're being empathetic, it means that you're putting yourself in the shoes of the other person. You're trying to understand the struggles they're having, or whatever it is. And then the selling part of it is that you're actually trying to provide a solution to that issue for them. So there is no conflict between the two positions at all. Yeah, I mean they go hand in hand, but as you say, sometimes we think, oh dear, the selling part is bringing a kind of a conflict into this, where there's no conflicts exist.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, here's the thing: the conflict exists if you make it. That's what I always say: is selling isn't gross until you make it gross.
Yeah. No, it's very true. I mean, and the other thing is, we always have to take, if you were selling in a gross manner, you have to take responsibility for that. And I think a lot of that, as you said, comes from trying to be somebody you're not. Because at the end of the day, to be successful in anything, you have to be yourself. You have to get comfortable with yourself. You have to be aware of yourself, and then you have to be able to relate to other people.
Absolutely. And that confidence piece is so key, because the one thing, introverts, hear me, empaths, hear me, false modesty is not your friend. And shyness coming off as meekness is not your friend. You do not need to come off as bombastic. You do need to come off as sure of what you're selling and sure of your own ability to provide that thing. Right? So whatever that confidence means to you, if it's quiet confidence, amazing. Right? If it's not, hey, look at me, if it's confidence in yourself to show up and be vulnerable, that's enough. But make sure that you're not sitting there going, Thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it so much. And I know you have other choices for CRMs, but Pipeliner would really appreciate your business. That's not going to work. I'd rather you
Yeah.
say nothing than say that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I mean, because then you just undermine yourself, but you devalue yourself. And I think that's the biggest thing here is if you don't believe that you have something to offer, if you don't believe in your product or service, then you're devaluing everything to do with yourself and you're confident, because at the end of the day, hey, what do I want from a salesperson? I want somebody who is going to tell me something I don't know, or is going to help me see something in a different way,
I
or
want
is
my
going to,
problem solved.
yeah, yeah,
I
simple as
want my
that.
problem solved. That's what I want. I'm going into this hoping you're the perfect person for me. You're going into this hoping I'm the perfect person for you. You're on the same team.
Yeah, no, you are. And that's funny because that's not how it often plays out. It becomes very, and I would say oftentimes passive aggressively, the passive aggressive conflict that comes into it, because suddenly people are taking sides. Whereas you say, if you focus in on the issue, you should be working on the same team.
Mm-hmm.
So, Annie, listen, this has been fantastic. Give me a couple of tips for introverts. And what if there's introverts and empaths listening today, what are a couple of things that they should do immediately to improve how they can sell?
Empaths talk less, listen more, speak from your own experience in order to invite the other person to talk to their pain points in a way that feels accessible to them. Introverts, you don't have to talk the whole time, but what I want you to do is come up with questions that will help you determine in your beautifully introspective mind, in your analysis brain. I want you to determine if this person is the right fit for you. So come up with the questions to determine, is the timeline right? Is the budget right? Is the problem right? Have they tried this before? Whatever questions you need to ask, that is going to allow you to do what you do best, to inquire and then wait, and then inquire and then wait. But do not go in with a sales script, introverts. It will come off so disingenuous. Instead, take the time that you would take learning or honing that script to come up with really wonderful questions, and much like an email segmentation, to say, okay, and if they answer it this way, I'm going to suggest this. Give yourself your outline, give yourself your roadmap, and then just listen.
Yeah, listen, I think that's fantastic advice. And here's one other thing that we like to ask our guests here on Sales Chat, Annie, is give us a power tip. What do you do personally every day to set yourself up for success?
Every single day, to set myself up for success, I honor my small wins. Because if I only look at my wins when I exceed my goals, I show up every day and struggle. Whereas if I show up every day and I go, you know what, that person didn't sign today, but I got a verbal commit for 3 months, I still need to celebrate that. If I decide that a client isn't right for me and I tell them that we're not a fit, that doesn't go into my CRM like that. That doesn't go into my stats. No one's going to put the name on a board and ring a bell for me. I still have to honor the fact that I made the right choice for me and the right choice for my business. And if I'm part of a company, the right choice for my company.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great piece of advice, because I do sometimes think that we focus too much on the big things and we miss the evidence around us that actually we're doing okay.
And
As you said, when
testimonials
you,
and referrals too. Celebrate those. Those are
yeah.
wins. Those are just as beautiful as sales. So when you get a testimonial coming in, for the love of God, don't go, oh, I can't read this. This is about me. I'll just put it in a folder. Read that testimonial. You earned it. Read it and appreciate it and celebrate it. And same thing with referrals. If someone is sending someone over to you, it means they believe in you. Celebrate that.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. As I said, like keep looking for evidence that you're doing something right, and then and build your confidence over time. Well, listen, Annie, this has been fantastic. Before we go, just a couple of seconds, tell people a little bit more about yourself.
So the Non-Sleazy Sales Academy is exactly what it sounds like. We are a place for heart-centered, mission-driven people to learn about selling. I also have a podcast called Too Legitimate to Quit, instantly actionable small business strategies with a pop culture spin. If you feel weird about selling, either pop onto my website and soak up some education, or if you're going into a sales conversation that you're nervous about, DM me first on LinkedIn or Instagram. I'm easy to find, and I would love to soothe your beautiful introverted or empathic hearts before you go in to make your next ask.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. All right, my name is John Golden, SalesPOP Online Sales Magazine, Pipeliner CRM. Thank you, Martha in Vienna. Good chat on the Twitter chat today.
Yes, you have to read it.
I will go read it after this. Thank you, Martha. Thank you, Annie. And by the way, out there, I have to thank Annie as well, because I had my second shot yesterday of the vaccine. And thanks to Annie's great advice of drinking Pedialyte, didn't bother me at all. And in fact, I'm the only person my wife, myself, are the only person we know out of the people who've gotten the second vaccine who had no issues. So there you go. So not only will Annie soothe the empath and the introvert in here, she'll give you a great health and medical advice too.
Electrolytes. There we go. Next time we're going to talk about selling with electrolytes. I don't know.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Actually, yeah.
This could be a topic, a good one.
Yeah, we could do everything. We could do all the energy drinks too. We could just assess them, maybe.
I mean, I do have a Gatorade Zero.
You do, I see.
Wow.
Oh, very good.
We're getting product placement on this. Sales Chat is about to get sponsored by some hydration beverage. It's going to happen.
I think just after that, I think we're going to invoice Gatorade and see what they pay.
Oh.
All right, listen, again, my name is John Golden. Thanks, Martha. Thanks, Annie. Always entertaining, always insightful. Thank you so much. I'll see you all again for a live sales chat soon. Thank you.